Constellation. This is the show that has been out for probably about 2 months now. I've watched it probably about a month ago, and I keep putting off talking about it. And it is a sci-fi show. It is a science fiction show, and it stars Numi Rapace of Girl in the Dragon Tattoo fame, the Swedish version. And this all starts off with it starts off on a space station. It starts on the International Space Station, and you meet Numi Rapace. You see her going around, and you see all the different astronauts from different countries who are on there. She's from Sweden. There's an American on there. There's a Russian on there. I think it's somebody from Finland, and they're doing all these operations and everything, and they're doing all these experiments that they're supposed to be doing in zero gravity. They switch one of the experiments on, and excuse me. Thank you. They switch on an experiment, and as they switch on an experiment, something hits the space station. And then the first episode of this becomes Gravity. It's like a remake of the film Gravity with Sandra Bullock, where it's all about, all right, that's at the space station. How do we survive? That person's lost an arm. Then we go in here. You go into the escape pod. Okay, we're going to the escape pod. We only have space for 3 people. There's 4 people on here. You go back to Earth. Right, I'm left here. What do I do? All right, you need to go and do all this science, all this stuff, and move this battery from here to that place, and move that battery from there to that place, because if you don't do that, you're gonna die. And it all becomes like almost like a survival horror of how do you get from the space station back to Earth when half the thing has been blown up and nothing's working. And so this all happens. Eventually, people manage to get back down to Earth. But in the process of getting to Earth, weird things start happening. Like there's time jumps all of a sudden. She's on the space station and she's like, "Hang on a second. I thought I had 5 hours to do this, and now I only have 3. Where did those 2 hours go?" She gets back down to Earth, and it seems like there's weird things going on. Like her at the beginning, when you meet her, she's speaking Swedish with her daughter. She's married to an English guy. They live in, I think, where do they? I think they live in Russia because no, they can't be in Russia. They live somewhere. They live somewhere else because of the whole sort of space station thing and the whole astronaut stuff. And she's speaking Swedish with her daughter at the beginning of the film because her daughter has learned Swedish from her. She gets back down to Earth, and it turns out that her daughter doesn't speak Swedish. And she's like, what the heck's going on? It turns out that there's this weird thing going on where it seems like her husband is colder to her than she is to him, and it's almost as if he's pulling away from her. And he seems really confused about the fact that he actually says the line, "You seem to like me." And she's like, "Yeah, why wouldn't I like you? You're my husband," and all that. And it carries on and all. There's 8 episodes of this stuff, and it very slowly sort of tries to build up what is going on. At the same time, you meet Jonathan Banks, who plays this scientist who seems to have, I'm not sure, it seems like a split personality, because at sometimes you meet him and he's like a scientist, and sometimes you meet him, he's a Vietnam vet, and you're like, what happened? And it's just all sort of weird and stuff. And I think this tries to be quite clever with its whole, look at us, look how sci-fi we're being, or look how thinky sci-fi we are. And I don't know, it's a bit like what Hollywood's saying, whether something is just funny to people who watch a lot of films, or whether it's actually just funny. And I kind of thought it was obvious what was going on, and I'm not sure whether it's just because I've hung out with a lot of physicists who talk about things like this, or if I've just seen things like this before. And it made me think of, there was something else I had watched recently that I was like, well, obviously this is what's happening. That's what, and I think it becomes quite clear quite early on. But they do try and hide it, and they try and go, ooh, and by the time they go, this is what's happening, I'm like, I was 2 episodes ahead of you. So it's, and then after that, it kind of drags a little bit, and it kind of gets to a point, and then it gets to a point where I am not sure the internal logic of the show holds together. I'm not sure that the internal logic of the show holds together when they say, why is everything different? Like, why does her husband seem to think that she hates him? Why does her daughter not speak Swedish? Why does she remember the car being red but now it's blue? All these sort of things. And when they sort of explain it and they go to it, I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure that. But if you did that, wouldn't that mean that? I mean, if you did that, wouldn't that mean that? I'm not really. And then it ends, the final shot of it ends in this kind of dun dun dun, season 2. And I'm like, no, that makes no sense. The way you ended it, that final shot was something that was done almost like for a jump scare, and not really because it made any sense. And it was because somebody was thinking, let's make as much money out of this thing, let's get a season two. It has been cancelled. There is no season two. Because there is no season two. And I think, quite frankly, that is right. Because I think that the story ends where it ends. It ends in a way. It's one of these things where it doesn't get tied up in a nice little bow, but there is some resolution at the end of the story. Which, and I actually quite like that. I quite like the way it ended. But the show in all, I have to give it's a low 3. I think it would be really, really churlish to give it a 2, but because it is really well made, the performances are good, there are some good ideas in there, and I just feel like I think it's a bit ponderous, and I think it thinks it's cleverer than it actually is, or I think it thinks it's cleverer than I found it, essentially. So I would give it. It's a 3 minus. It's a low 3 for me, but just about a 3. Would I recommend anybody watch it? Not really. I mean, if you like, I mean, it would have to.
Lord.
I mean, even if somebody was really, really into the physics of it and really, really into the idea, and some people will understand what I mean when I say quantum supposition. So if anybody, or superposition, sorry, if anybody was into that all that kind of stuff I'm thinking about, even if they were, I just don't think the story is told particularly well, and I think it has some holes in it. So I don't really think I would recommend anybody sat through 8 hours of this. So that's it. 3 stars minus for Constellation.